last 15 or 20 years, there's really been a growing sophistication in the after-school and summer learning field, and there's almost been built an infrastructure to help support and fund after-school in ways we never saw before. Even though there were after-school and summer programs many years ago, they were pretty individualized, separate, disconnected. That doesn't mean that's bad, but there's really been an attempt to kind of provide opportunities broadly across America and across some cities and some states, and that's really exciting. And there's really like 5 pillars in that. And one is the startup and funding of the 21st Century Community Learning Centers that now provides across America 11,000 sites for after school and summers. That's one of the pillars. Another one is some states have really taken an effort in both to organize many groups to try to improve the quality and expand opportunities, but some states have actually funded after school, like California with Proposition 49 and several others, but not to that degree. The third pillar are municipal efforts. There's growing interest among mayors and city councils to expand after school and summer programs and have created infrastructures or intermediaries in their area to make that happen, including sometimes funding, which is very exciting. So we got federal, state, local funding. A fourth aspect in all this is that states now have after-school networks or coalitions. So these are groups broadly based of many people who are trying to build public will and understanding about the importance of after-school and summers. And finally, nationwide, we have a national group, the After School Alliance, that's trying to connect all these different groups, Boys and Girls Clubs, WISE, 4-H, 21st century programs, faith-based programs, and getting them to kind of row in the same direction. We didn't have that 15 or 20 years ago, so it's a really exciting place to be. Huge growth, but huge need remaining. So the federal government started making a big investment in school community partnerships to expand after-school programs, starting in about 1998 to 2001 and 2, and has continued that investment up to today. It started out as a program with $750,000 for the whole country, 7 sites. Now there's a $1.1 billion investment in 11,000 sites. So big growth, big fights about how to keep it and get the money, which I think we're going to talk about later. But the reason it caught on and grew so fast is that people started recognizing in the late 90s and 2000, 2001, 2002, 3 dynamics. Many more parents were working and commuting long distances. So what do you do with the young people when the school day ends or in the summer? A second one, people realized that a lot of teens get in trouble in those hours between 3 and 6 and 3 and 7. In fact, there was some research done right then by the FBI and found that the highest time for youth crime and victimization in America, it wasn't at night, it was after the school day ended. So how do you keep kids busy, productive? A third area, and this is also new at that time, is that at that point in time, people just thought of after school or summers as sort of threw a ball out and let kids run around, which you should have some of that. But also could be a great opportunity between 3 and 6 and summers to let young people explore new opportunities and expand their horizons, try new things out, visit places, get people from the community involved with young people in schools and out, and really help young people get on a pathway of success. So all 3 of those things were kind of happening in the late 1990s, but the catalyst to actually move something forward and to fund the 21st Century program came in a White House conference in 1997 that First Lady Hillary Clinton called with Democrats and Republicans. It was a bipartisan conference with hundreds of leaders from foundations, business, youth groups came together and decided that all 3 of these areas we should start working on. And that then caused interest in looking for something in the federal government that you could fund to grow that would help address those 3 concerns, and that was the 21st Century Community Learning Centers. So little history lessons critical here. At that point in time, when the big growth from $750,000 to $1.1 billion all happened in 4 years, rarely happens, Congress at the time was, in the House, was controlled by conservatives who did not want a federal role in education. So you're asking people in the House of Representatives who don't like federal intrusion to fund a federal program. They like the idea that a foundation or foundations would provide the technical assistance, leadership development, and training, not the federal government. So the Mott Foundation and other foundations, but particularly them, said we could provide through all of our grantees and allies across America training, technical assistance, leadership development, so that the program can get off the ground and running quickly. And that was very important. Plus, the Mott Foundation and several others really thought it was important to have school groups working with community-based and youth groups to expand after-school and summer opportunities. And their tradition, the foundation's tradition for years, was that kind of partnership. So it's very, very appealing to them. And the final one, the foundation then and now always felt that after-school and summer learning and family involvement is not only important for kids, but also as a way to get more equity and help struggling kids get ahead. So that was very appealing to Mott and other foundations. And so the foundation actually, since that time, since 1998, has spent $150 million with professional development, training, research, and partnership building. When there's a major investment of government funding, either locally, at the state, or national level, then legislators are going to be asking, so what difference does it make? So the 21st Century Community Learning Center went from under $1 million to $1.2 billion, so people want to know what difference does it make. The Proposition 49 in California went from a small appropriation to over $500 million in California. So it's natural that legislators who represent taxpayers are going to ask people, so what difference does it make? So you have to expect that if you want to garner local municipal support, school district support, state support, or federal support, you better be ready for the question about what difference does it make. And in this particular area of after school and summer learning, there's a lot of possible goals. So the key in evaluation or looking at outcomes is, does the design, what you hope to achieve, does it match what you're measuring? And that has been a struggle ever since the 21st Century Community Learning Center passed and the Proposition 49, and both programs are working hard to find better ways to measure results and effectiveness, and they're starting to see real difference in like attendance, grades, behavior of students who participate in quality programs. Because of the interest and concern about showing results and impact and improving quality, from the very beginning of the expansion of 21st Century Community Learning Centers and the Proposition 49, as I mentioned, there was interest in showing results. Early on in those programs, the concern was about broader measures of impact. Are kids do they enjoy the program? Do parents think the programs are effective? The grades improving? But also, are children reading and doing math better, or writing more? But then about in 2002 to 14, No Child Left Behind, the federal education legislation, came into being and really put an emphasis just on reading and math test scores. So that spilled over to after school and summer. So many people, state leaders and federal leaders and local leaders, saying, what are you doing about impacting reading and math test scores? Now in the last couple of years, people realize, yes, those are important skills, but they aren't the only skills that young people need to be successful. They need to show up on time. They need to be able to work in teams. They need to not misbehave. They need to pass from one grade to the next. they need to show some grit and resolve and responsibility. And so it's encouraging that right now, as we're doing this interview, there's a lot more interest in broader set of skills. And the new Federal Education Act that replaced No Child Left Behind, the Every Child Succeed Act, ESSA, it actually invites states and school districts to find more measures of student success beyond test scores. So after school and summers are better suited really to develop a whole set of other skills that young people sometimes can't develop as well in the school day because of its structure. But you need both. You need to be able to read, write, do math, science, social studies, and also have these other workforce life skills. And I think we're all kind of getting on the same page now, so it's really an exciting time to work in these fields. There's been a lot of interesting developments in the last maybe 8 or 10 years in studies, new kinds of studies, long-term study, longitudinal studies. Deborah Vandell has been following a group of young people for several years and has found that when young people regularly attend quality programs, they behave better, they get better grades, they achieve better in math, eventually in reading, they show more responsibility. Another set of research, Durlak and Weisberg, did a huge meta-analysis. A meta-analysis is really a study of many studies, and they found that quality programs can in fact improve student behavior, social emotional learning, character development, grades, test scores. Those are big milestones. We didn't have these data or studies 10 years ago. We thought they would make a difference, and we had little studies, but these are really major studies. There's a new study out funded by the Wallace Foundation looking at summer learning. They looked at 5 cities who offered summer learning programs in very different venues, maybe an art center, maybe an environmental studies program, maybe a reading program, and they found the same thing. If kids are involved in quality programs for 4 or 5 weeks in the summer, they actually stem the summer learning loss and are more excited about learning in the coming school year. A number of states with the 21st Century Community Learning Centers are doing special studies in finding that children are finishing homework more, their teachers think they're getting better behavior. So all these data and studies we didn't have in 2000 when we kind of rolled out the 21st Century program and we did Proposition 49. So that's very, very exciting that we have these studies and data, and various groups, professional development groups, conferences, are taking these data and trying to help the field improve their design of programs, their delivery of programs. It's interesting when you're trying to say, what can we do to improve quality? There's sort of 2 schools of thought, and sometimes it's probably the middle school of thought that makes it different. One school of thought is, let's go out and find the most effective after-school programs or summer programs and then take it around the country and have people just replicate it. There's another school of thought that, well, it's good to know what they're doing, but each community is a little bit different. The environment in the after-school program or summer program is a little bit different. The kids are a little bit different from the model program, so we need to design our own program. And I think it's a mixture of the 2 that works. In other words, so if you're telling a group of people in a particular city or state, we really got to up our game. We really have to do a better job in middle school, after-school programs. If you just say that and say, why don't you sit down together and come up with something, you're probably not going to end up with much. But if you say, let's look at 3 or 4 other successful programs, there should be some of those examples should be like your state. For some reason, in education and in after school, if you come in with an idea from a state that's different than your state or a city different than your city, they'll say, that doesn't apply to us. But you should have a couple of those, but you probably need some examples that are similar to your settings, similar to your students' income level, makeup, focus, And then sit down with people and say, aha, now that you've looked at these successful approaches or designs or delivery, how should we redesign or how should we design anew what we're going to offer in our after-school and summer program? So taking the best in the field is important, but you have to allow, in my estimation, local people to put the finishing touches on it, or they don't have buy-in, and then they're not committed. It's really important to advance the movement to have groups that are out there day after day telling folks the need. For example, the After School Alliance every 5 years does a survey of parents across America, and they've found in the last 10 years there's been like 2 to 4 million more parents enrolling their children in after-school programs, which is terrific, but they found that 19 million more parents would like to enroll their programs if they could find quality programs and accessible programs. So you need to have groups like them and others telling folks in America that the need far exceeds the supply. And then you need researchers, evaluators to share what works so that people know that if you go to a quality program, young people are going to be safe, they're going to be inspired to learn, they're going to be cared after so parents can work. So you need the combination of data, you need a combination of studies, you need a combination of public will-building advocacy groups at the state, like the State After School, at the national level, like the After School Alliance, and at the local level. You need the combination. And what's interesting, watching this over many, many years at the federal, state, and local level, you have to have fresh data almost every year and a new angle to sell it, even though some of this doesn't change. People say, oh, that study's 5 years old. Even if you did the same study, you might find the same thing. It's still out of date. So you have to constantly refine and improve the methods of delivery, the data, the findings, find new ways to message it, find ways to engage more people. We now have, you might call it infrastructure, a platform, not everywhere. We still have a lot of holes where we don't have any programs where we might need them the most. But in many places in the country, we have quality after-school programs. That now allows us to use after-school partnerships and programming to perhaps get into new areas where young people need support. For example, there's growing concern that middle school students and high school students don't have a real clear path to how do you graduate from high school? How do I go to college? How do I get a job? What kind of workforce skills could I get or do I need? We could start working on those workforce skills and college and career readiness in after-school programs by partnering with businesses, community colleges. There's real interest right now in science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM fields. And throwing the arts in there, when you throw arts in there, it's STEM plus the arts, it's STEAM. So a lot of interest in how could you use after-school and summer programs to interest students in STEM or STEAM. And some really good examples around the country that have been able to take students that said, ooh, science, math, I can't do that. And they go through the summer program or after-school program, build robots, use dance and drama to learn technology or science, and come out saying, I think I can do that, or learn coding. So those are just maybe two areas of many that if you have sort of a platform, you have the partnerships, you have the basic program, we can now branch out and get into other areas. Another one is entrepreneurial education. A lot of people, young people say, I don't want to work for the company, I want to start my own business. So you can run entrepreneurial learning programs or community service programs and after-school and summers programs, and in addition to what they're doing now, and really help young people engage in their community and in their growth in some new ways.